And so we find ourselves in a weird kind of limbo where the dispersion of power in our system is able to ward off anti-democratic authoritarian actions, which is great, but at the same time, those very same features frustrate pro-democratic efforts to improve our elections and our democracy. I'm Nick Stephanopoulos. I'm a professor here at the law school. So my essay asks what the last few years have shown us about the state of democracy in America. And my take is more optimistic than that of some observers, but still includes a pretty healthy dose of pessimism. So let me start with the optimistic side of things. Over the last few years, we've seen all kinds of efforts to subvert American democracy. We've seen executive orders trying to restrict voting. We've seen Congress debate a bill that would dramatically restrict voting and voter registration. We've seen assaults on some of the basic institutions of democracy, like the media and universities and courts. So all of that sounds pretty bad, but I want to call attention to the fact that many of these deliberate attacks on democracy have failed. So the president's anti-voting executive orders have been enjoined by courts. They haven't gone into effect. Congress debated an anti-voting bill, but Congress wasn't able to pass that bill. Attacks on courts, attacks on the president's enemies, attacks on the media have largely failed. And we continue to have a functioning judiciary, robust media and free speech, notwithstanding the attacks on these democratic institutions. And I think it's important to note why a lot of these attacks have failed. I think a big reason is the dispersion of power in the American system of governance. So we don't have a single all-powerful executive. We have a bicameral legislature with a supermajority threshold for passing legislation in the Senate. We have vigorous judicial review. We have federalism, so 50 sovereign states that often resist federal orders. We have thousands of localities that are also independent political actors. And it's a combination of all of these dispersed power centers that has stopped many of this administration's attacks on democracy. So all that sounds pretty good, but I also want to call attention to the dark side of this dispersion of power, which is that it really complicates efforts to improve, to perfect our democracy. And we can really see this by looking at some developments during the Biden administration. So the Biden administration tried really hard to pass a sweeping pro-voting electoral reform bill. This bill would have curbed partisan gerrymandering, made it easier to vote, restricted money in politics, introduced ethics reforms for the president and for the courts. We've done many, many good things, but this bill foundered on the same dispersion of power that has been blocking the Trump administration's anti-democratic actions. So there was a filibuster in the Senate, and that bill couldn't overcome the Senate filibuster, and so it failed. And so we find ourselves in a weird kind of limbo where the dispersion of power in our system is able to ward off anti-democratic authoritarian actions, which is great, but at the same time, those very same features frustrate pro-democratic efforts to improve our elections and our democracy. And so I think a central challenge for those who think about and participate in American democracy is what to do with a situation where decline is difficult because of how power is dispersed, but progress is also difficult for exactly the same reason.